Sometimes the heart sees what it wants to see, not what's really there. Sometimes we fall so deep into hope that we forget to look at the ground beneath us. And sometimes we invest everything we have into a dream that was never meant to come true. This is my story. This is what happened when I believed too much, trusted too fast, and paid the ultimate price for wanting something real in a world full of illusions. If you like our videos, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support means everything. Now let me take you back to where it all began, back to the moment that would change my life forever. I was 49 years old when I found her profile, 49 and completely alone. Let me paint you a picture of my life back then. I lived in a small one-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of an old building. The elevator never worked, so I climbed those stairs every single day after work. My job was simple. I was an accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. Numbers, spreadsheets, tax returns, the same routine day after day for 23 years. I wasn't unhappy exactly. I was just empty, hollow, going through the motions of existence without actually living. I'd tried everything to meet someone. Everything. Local dating apps where I'd swipe for hours and get maybe one match a month that never led anywhere. Matchmaking services that cost me hundreds of dollars and resulted in exactly 0 dates. Even those awkward speed dating events at the hotel conference center where everyone avoided eye contact and counted down the seconds until they could move to the next table. Nothing worked. I sent hundreds, maybe thousands of messages to women across the country. Some were read and ignored. Most were never opened at all. I started to believe I was invisible, a ghost moving through the world that no one could actually see. My friends from college had all gotten married years ago. They had kids now, teenagers, some of them. They'd stopped inviting me to things, not because they were mean, but because I was the odd one out, the single guy at the family barbecue, the extra chair at the dinner table. I understood. I didn't blame them. But it made the loneliness worse. Every birthday that passed felt like another year wasted, another year alone, another year further from the dream of having someone to share life with. That's when I expanded my search. International dating sites. I'd heard about them, seen the commercials, read the articles warning about scams, but I was desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. I created a profile, posted a few photos, wrote a simple bio about myself, accountant, stable job, looking for something real, something lasting. Then I started browsing. Women from Thailand, Vietnam, Colombia, Ukraine, the Philippines. The Philippines. That's where I saw her face for the first time. Her name was Sophia. She was 26 years old. Her profile picture showed her standing on a beach at sunset, the golden light making her skin glow. She had long dark hair that fell past her shoulders, warm brown eyes, and a smile that seemed to light up the screen. The other photos showed a life so different from mine. Colorful markets bursting with tropical fruits I'd never seen, streets lined with palm trees, small houses with tin roofs painted in bright colors, a world that seemed vibrant and alive compared to my gray apartment and gray routine. Her profile was short and simple. She worked at a small cafe in a coastal town called Batangas. She helped her parents pay bills. She took care of her younger brother who was still in school. She wanted to find someone serious, someone who valued family and loyalty, someone who wanted to build a real future together. That was it. No long list of demands, no requirements about height or income or looks. Just honesty, just simplicity, or so I thought at the time. I sent her a message. I spent an hour writing and rewriting it. I wanted to sound interesting but not arrogant, honest but not desperate. Finally, I just wrote from the heart. I told her I saw her profile and thought she seemed like someone special. I said I was looking for something real too, something genuine. I asked about her life in the Philippines, about the cafe where she worked, about her dreams for the future. Then I hit send and tried not to think about it. I'd sent so many messages before that went unanswered. Why would this one be different? But it was different. Within 10 minutes, my phone buzzed. She'd replied. My heart actually skipped a beat when I saw the notification. I opened the message and read it 3 times. She was warm, friendly, enthusiastic. She used heart emojis and smiley faces. She called me dear, said she was so happy to receive my message. She said I seemed like a kind and genuine person. She asked about my day, my job, what life was like where I lived. No one had asked me those things in years. No one cared about the mundane details of my quiet life, but she did. Or she made it seem like she did. We started talking every single day, multiple times a day actually. The time difference was tricky. The Philippines was 13 hours ahead, so when I was getting ready for work in the morning, she was winding down for the night. When I was finishing my day at the office, she was just waking up. We found a rhythm though. I'd message her in the morning, and she'd reply during her lunch break. Then we'd chat in the evening, my time, which was early morning for her. She'd tell me about getting ready for work, about the walk to the cafe, about the smell of fresh bread baking and coffee brewing. Those messages became my lifeline. I'd sit at my desk at work, pretending to focus on spreadsheets, but really I was waiting for my phone to buzz. I'd smile when her name appeared on the screen. My co-workers noticed. They'd ask why I seemed happier, more energetic. I'd brush it off. Just had a good weekend. Just feeling good. I couldn't tell them the truth. That a girl halfway around the world who I'd never met was the only thing making me want to get out of bed in the morning. She told me about her life in detail. Her mother had diabetes and needed expensive medication every month. Her father worked construction, but the pay was irregular and barely enough to cover rent and food. Her younger brother Diego was 14 and dreamed of becoming an engineer, but they struggled to afford his school supplies and uniforms. Sophia herself had wanted to become a nurse, but had to drop out of school when she was 19 because her family needed her to work. She'd been working at the cafe ever since, 7 days a week, 10-hour shifts, sending almost all her money home. The more she told me, the more I felt for her. Here was this beautiful, kind, hard-working girl who'd sacrificed her own dreams to take care of her family, who woke up before sunrise every day to walk to work, who smiled and served coffee to tourists while carrying the weight of her family's survival on her shoulders. It made my own problems seem small. It made me want to help her. It made me want to be the person who could change her life for the better. She asked about me too. She wanted to know everything. What my apartment looked like, what I ate for breakfast, what I did on weekends, what my dreams were. I told her about my quiet life, about the routine that had become comfortable in its predictability, about the dream I'd had for years of finding someone to share it all with, someone to cook dinner for, someone to watch movies with on Sunday afternoons, someone to wake up next to and fall asleep beside. She said she wanted those things too. She said she'd been praying for someone like me, someone stable, someone kind, someone who would treat her with respect and love. After 3 weeks of messaging back and forth multiple times a day, I gathered the courage to ask if we could video call. I was terrified. What if she saw me and was disappointed? What if the connection we had through text didn't translate to real-time conversation? What if I said something stupid and ruined everything? But I had to know if this was real. If the feelings growing inside me were based on something tangible, or just my imagination filling in the gaps. She agreed immediately. She seemed excited. That night, I prepared like I was going on the most important date of my life. I cleaned my entire apartment, even though she'd only see the corner where my desk was. I changed my shirt 4 times, settling on a simple blue button-down that didn't look too formal or too casual. I checked my hair in the mirror, brushed my teeth twice, made sure the lighting in my apartment was flattering. When my phone rang with the video call, my hands were actually shaking. Then her face appeared on my screen and I forgot how to breathe. She was stunning, even more beautiful than her photos. The camera quality wasn't great, the connection was a bit choppy, but none of that mattered. I could see her smile, real and bright and directed at me. I could see her eyes crinkle at the corners when she laughed. I could see her push her hair behind her ear shyly. She was real. She was there. And she was talking to me. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, her accent making the words sound musical. "I'm so happy to finally see you." Sweetheart. She called me sweetheart on the first video call. My heart melted. I tried to respond, but my voice came out rough and nervous. I cleared my throat and tried again. "Hi, Sophia. You're even more beautiful than your pictures." She blushed. Actually blushed. Her cheeks turned pink, and she smiled down at her hands for a moment before looking back at the camera. "You are very kind." "Thank you, my love, my love." She called me my love within the first 5 minutes of our first video call. Looking back now, I can see the red flags so clearly. But in that moment, I was floating. I was flying. Someone actually liked me. Someone actually wanted to talk to me. Someone called me sweetheart and my love, and seemed genuinely happy to see my face. I stumbled over my words like a teenager on his first date. I tried to sound confident and smooth, but I felt clumsy and awkward. She didn't seem to mind. She giggled at my jokes even when they weren't funny. She listened intently when I talked about my work. She asked follow-up questions that made me feel heard and understood. That first call lasted 2 hours. We talked about everything and nothing. She showed me around her small room through the camera. The bed she shared with her younger sister. The small window that looked out onto the street. The photo of her family hanging on the wall. She was sharing her world with me, and I felt privileged to see it. When we finally said goodbye, I felt like I was saying goodbye to someone I'd known for years. She blew me a kiss through the camera. Talk to you tomorrow, my love. Sweet dreams. I went to bed that night with a smile on my face for the first time in longer than I could remember. The video calls became routine after that. Every night without fail. Sometimes we'd talk for 3 or 4 hours. I'd make dinner while talking to her on video. She'd get ready for work while I was getting ready for bed. We existed in different time zones, but it felt like we were living in the same world. A world that existed just for the two of us. She became the center of my universe. Everything I did during the day was just marking time until I could talk to her again. My co-workers definitely noticed the change in me now. I was happier, lighter, more engaged. I'd catch myself smiling at nothing while staring at my computer screen. I was falling in love, and everyone could see it except the person who should have been questioning it. Me. About 6 weeks into our relationship, Sophia started mentioning small problems she was facing. Nothing major at first. Just casual mentions woven into our regular conversations. Her mother's medication was running low, and they were trying to figure out how to afford the refill. The rainy season was starting, and their roof was leaking badly. Her brother needed new shoes because his only pair had worn through. She never asked for help directly. She just mentioned these things like facts of life, like struggles she was dealing with, but would figure out somehow. I wanted to help. How could I not? This girl who made me feel alive, who talked to me for hours every night, who called me sweetheart and my love, was struggling. I had money. Not a fortune, but I'd been saving for years. I lived simply, didn't spend much on myself, had built up a decent nest egg. What was money compared to helping the person I loved? The person who loved me back? So one night after she mentioned her mother really needed that medication, I offered, "Sophia, how much does the medication cost? I want to help." She seemed surprised, maybe embarrassed. "Oh no, sweetheart. I couldn't ask you to do that. You've already been so kind just talking to me every day." But I insisted. I told her I wanted to help, that it would make me happy to know I could ease some of her burden. Finally, she gave in. "The medication is $80, but only if you're sure. I don't want you to feel like you have to." $80. That was nothing to me. That was less than I'd spend on groceries in a week. I sent it immediately through an online transfer service. She could pick it up in cash at a local remittance center in her town. The next day she sent me photos. Her at the remittance center, holding the money with a huge smile on her face. Her mother holding the medication with tears of gratitude in her eyes. Sophia on video call that night thanking me over and over. "You are my angel. You are my hero. I don't know what I would do without you. I love you so much, I love you." She said it first. I'd been feeling it for weeks but was too scared to say it. Now here she was saying those 3 words I'd been dying to hear. I said it back immediately. "I love you too, Sophia, so much." After that first transfer, more needs came up. Her father's motorcycle broke down, and he couldn't get to work without it. $200 for repairs. Her brother needed to pay school fees, or he'd be dropped from his classes. $150. Their landlord was threatening to evict them if they didn't pay the overdue rent. $500. Each time she mentioned these problems, she seemed reluctant to ask for help. She'd mention the problem and then quickly change the subject. But I could hear the worry in her voice. I could see the stress on her face during our video calls, so I'd offer, and she'd gratefully accept. And I'd send the money feeling like a hero, feeling like I was making a real difference in her life, in our future life together. The amount started to increase gradually. 100 here, 300 there, 500, 1,000. She started talking about bigger dreams, about finishing that nursing program she'd had to drop out of, about maybe opening a small business, a sari-sari store where they could sell basic goods to the neighborhood. These dreams always required capital, though. Always needed funding. Tuition was expensive. Business supplies cost money. But these weren't just her dreams anymore. They were our dreams. She talked about how once she became a nurse, she could get a good job and we could save money together. How the store could provide income for her family, so they wouldn't struggle anymore. How all of this was building toward the day when we could finally be together permanently. When I could come visit and maybe even stay. When we could build a real life together. I wasn't just sending money. I was investing in us. In our future. In the life we'd build together. That's how I justified it to myself. Every transfer was a down payment on happiness. On companionship, on love. I started cutting back on my own expenses to have more to send her. I cancelled my cable subscription and my gym membership. I stopped buying coffee on my way to work and made it at home instead. I bought cheaper groceries, generic brands instead of name brands. I stopped going out with co-workers for drinks after work. I even postponed a badly needed car repair because the money could be better used helping Sophia. 6 months into our relationship, I'd sent her thousands of dollars. I wasn't keeping track exactly because I didn't want to think about it as a transaction. It wasn't transactional. It was love. It was support. It was building our foundation. But if I had been keeping track, I would have seen how much it was adding up, how my savings account was steadily draining, how the nest egg I'd built over decades of careful saving was disappearing. But I didn't look. I didn't want to know. Because knowing would mean confronting the possibility that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't what I thought it was. Around the 8-month mark, I told Sophia I wanted to visit. I wanted to finally meet her in person, hold her hand, look into her eyes without a screen between us. She seemed excited. She said she'd been dreaming about this day. She was also nervous, she admitted. Meeting in person was different. What if I was disappointed? What if the chemistry we had online didn't translate to real life? I assured her that could never happen. I loved her. I knew her. We'd been talking every single day for 8 months. Meeting in person would only make our bond stronger. I applied for my very first passport. At 49 years old, I'd never needed one before. I'd never traveled internationally. Never had a reason to. But now I had the best reason in the world. Love, I booked a 2-week trip. I used almost all my remaining vacation days from work. I found flights with 2 layovers because they were cheaper than direct routes. I didn't care about comfort. I just needed to get there. I sent Sophia extra money, $300, so she could take time off work and meet me at the airport in Manila. She was so grateful. She said she couldn't wait to finally see me in person. The weeks leading up to the trip were the longest of my life. I counted down the days. I imagined our meeting over and over. The moment I'd see her in the arrivals hall. The hug, the kiss, the beginning of our real life together beyond the screen. I bought new clothes for the trip. I got a haircut. I even started working out in my apartment, doing push-ups and sit-ups because I wanted to look my best for her. My co-workers asked where I was going and I kept it vague. Just visiting a friend abroad. I couldn't explain Sophia to them. They'd think I was crazy. Flying halfway around the world to meet someone I'd only talked to online. Sending her thousands of dollars? They'd try to talk me out of it. They'd say I was being scammed. But they didn't know Sophia like I did. They didn't understand our connection. The day of the flight finally arrived. I barely slept the night before. Too excited, too nervous, too anxious. The flight was brutal. 22 hours total with 2 layovers. I was squeezed into a middle seat the entire way. I couldn't sleep on planes. I just sat there cramped and uncomfortable, replaying every conversation Sophia and I had ever had, imagining our first embrace, practicing what I'd say when I first saw her. I love you. I'm so happy to finally be here. You're even more beautiful in person. I rehearsed it all in my mind until the words lost meaning. When the plane finally landed in Manila, I felt like I'd been traveling for days. I was exhausted, sweaty, rumpled. But I was there. I was in her country. I was about to see her. I went through customs, grabbed my luggage and headed toward the arrivals area. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I scanned the crowd of people holding signs and waiting for passengers. Then I saw her. She was standing near the back, holding a small piece of paper with my name written in marker. She was smaller than I'd imagined, more delicate. She was wearing jeans and a simple white shirt. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked exactly like her photos, but somehow different, more real, more three-dimensional. I walked toward her with the biggest smile on my face. My arms were already opening for the embrace I'd been dreaming about for months. But as I got closer, something shifted. She saw me and gave a small smile, polite, reserved, not the explosion of joy I'd expected. I reached her and went in for a hug, but she stepped back slightly. She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, barely more than a peck, and immediately started talking about getting a taxi. No prolonged hug, no tears of joy, no passionate greeting. Just a polite hello and let's get going. I told myself she was just shy. Meeting in person was different from talking on a screen. She was probably nervous, overwhelmed. Give it time. The taxi ride to the hotel was chaotic. Manila traffic was insane. Cars and motorcycles weaving in and out, horns honking constantly. The heat was oppressive even with the windows down. Sophia sat beside me, pointing out landmarks as we passed. The mall, the church, the park, but she didn't hold my hand. She didn't lean against me. She sat separate, distant, like we were strangers sharing a cab. I tried to start conversation. I asked how her trip to Manila was. She lived hours away, so she'd had to take a bus to meet me. She said it was fine. A bit long, but fine. I told her about my flight, about the layovers, about how excited I was to finally be here. She nodded and smiled, but didn't really engage. The easy flow of conversation we had online was gone. Every topic I brought up fell flat. The silence between us felt heavy and awkward. I kept glancing at her, hoping she'd look back at me with that warmth I saw on video calls, but she mostly looked out the window or at her phone. We arrived at the hotel and I checked in. I'd booked a room with a king-sized bed overlooking the city. It was more than I usually spent, but I wanted everything to be perfect. I handed the clerk my passport and credit card. He gave me a key card, one key. I smiled at Sophia and gestured toward the elevators. That's when she spoke up. "Where is my key?" I turned to her, confused. "What do you mean?" "My room key." "I need my own room." I felt my stomach drop. "Your own room?" I thought we'd stay together. She shook her head, her expression firm. "No, we just met in person. I want my own room." "Just until we get to know each other better." I wanted to argue. We'd been talking for 8 months. We'd said we loved each other. We'd made plans for a future together. How did we not know each other? But I could see she wasn't budging, and I didn't want to start our trip with an argument. So I turned back to the clerk and asked for a second room. Luckily, they had one available right next door. I paid for it, trying not to think about the extra cost. This wasn't how I'd imagined our first night together, but maybe she was right. Maybe we needed to ease into the physical proximity. Maybe I was expecting too much too soon. The next 2 weeks were some of the most confusing and disappointing of my life. We spent time together every day. We went to shopping malls where Sophia browsed clothes and accessories with wide eyes. We ate at restaurants where she ordered dishes I'd never heard of and taught me how to eat with my hands like locals did. We walked along Manila Bay at sunset, watching the sky turn orange and pink. We took a day trip to Tagaytay to see the volcano. On paper, it was everything a romantic trip should be. But something fundamental was missing. Sophia was there, but she wasn't really there. She smiled when it was appropriate. She posed for photos when I asked. She held my hand when we crossed busy streets. But there was no warmth, no spontaneity, no genuine affection. Every gesture felt performed, obligatory, like she was fulfilling her part of an agreement rather than spending time with someone she loved. The playfulness we had on video calls was gone. The easy laughter, the inside jokes. It all disappeared the moment we met in person. We continued sleeping in separate rooms every night. I'd lie in bed alone, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I was doing wrong. During our video calls, she'd been so warm and affectionate. She'd called me sweetheart and my love, and told me how much she missed me. But here in person she was distant, reserved, almost cold. I tried to talk to her about it several times. I'd ask gently if everything was okay, if I'd done something to upset her. She'd brush it off. She was just tired. adjusting. Seeing me in person made everything feel real, and it was overwhelming. I wanted to believe those explanations. I needed to believe them, because the alternative was too painful. That she didn't actually love me, that she never had. That all of this was something else entirely. So I clung to her excuses and told myself things would get better. We just needed more time, more patience. The connection would come. I spent money constantly trying to bridge that gap. Trying to prove myself. Trying to show her I was worth loving. I bought her new clothes because she admired things in shop windows. Dresses, shoes, a handbag she kept looking at. I bought her a new smartphone because hers was old and the camera barely worked. I gave her cash to send to her family because her father had another emergency. More repairs, more bills, more urgent needs that required money immediately. I paid for every meal, every taxi, every entrance fee to every attraction. I wanted her to know I was a good provider, that I was serious about our future, that I would take care of her and her family. But nothing I did seemed to change the fundamental distance between us. No amount of money or gifts or romantic gestures made her look at me the way I looked at her, with genuine love, with real affection, with actual desire to be close. She accepted everything I gave her with polite gratitude. "Thank you, sweetheart. You're so kind." But her eyes remained empty. Her touch remained mechanical. And every night I went back to my separate hotel room, feeling more confused and more desperate to fix whatever was broken. The day I had to leave was devastating. We went to the airport together. Sophia had taken a taxi with me. In the departures area, as I prepared to check in for my flight, she started crying. Real tears streaming down her face. She hugged me for the first time with real feeling. Her arms wrapped around me tightly. She pressed her face into my chest. She told me she'd miss me so much. She told me to come back soon. She told me she loved me. Those tears and that hug, they felt real. They felt genuine. After 2 weeks of distance and confusion, this moment of emotion felt like everything I'd been hoping for. I cried too. I held her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, trying to memorize the feeling of her in my arms. I told her I loved her. I told her I'd come back as soon as I could. I told her we'd figure everything out and build a life together. She nodded against my chest, still crying. When I finally pulled away to go through security, she was wiping her eyes. She waved at me as I walked away. She looked so small and sad and beautiful. That image, that moment, it erased all the awkwardness of the previous 2 weeks. She did love me. She was just scared, or shy, or culturally different. Our connection was real. It had to be. The flight home was endless. I was exhausted but couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that final hug, those final tears. They felt like proof. Proof that our relationship was real. Proof that the distance and awkwardness had just been temporary hurdles. Proof that we had a future together. When I finally got back to my apartment, it felt emptier than ever. The silence was oppressive. I'd gotten used to talking to Sophia every night. Now, even though we were back to different continents, at least I'd held her. At least I knew what her hug felt like. At least I had that memory to hold on to. We resumed our video calls immediately. If anything, they became more frequent and longer than before. She talked about how much she missed me, how the visit had been wonderful, despite being overwhelming, how she couldn't wait to see me again, how she was working on becoming more comfortable with physical affection, because she knew it was important to me. Everything she said was exactly what I needed to hear. And the money requests continued. They became more frequent, actually, more urgent, larger amounts. She needed to enroll in that nursing program we'd talked about. The tuition was $1,200. She wanted to finish her education so she could get a better job and help her family. And eventually, when we were together permanently, contribute equally to our household. It made sense. It was an investment in our future. I sent the money. Then her family needed to move to a better house. The one they were renting was falling apart, and the landlord refused to make repairs. They found a small house in a better neighborhood, but needed $3,000 for the deposit and first month's rent. That was a lot, more than I'd sent at once before. But Sophia said this house would be big enough for me too. When I came to visit again, or maybe even stay permanently, this was our house, our future. I sent the money. Her father had an accident at work, fell off a ladder and broke his arm. He needed surgery. The hospital required payment up front, $5,000. I didn't have that much in my checking account anymore, so I had to transfer money from my savings, from the retirement fund I'd been building for decades. But what choice did I have? Her father was injured. He couldn't work. The family would starve without help, and Sophia was crying on video calls, begging me for help, telling me she didn't know what else to do. I sent the money, all of it. I wiped out most of my savings in one transfer. Months passed like this, me working my regular job, living increasingly frugally, sending more and more money to Sophia. I took on freelance accounting work in the evenings and on weekends. Extra projects for extra cash that I'd immediately transfer to her. I stopped eating out entirely. I lived on rice, beans, and whatever was cheapest at the grocery store. I lost weight. My clothes hung looser. My co-workers commented that I looked tired, thin, older than my age. I brushed them off. I was fine, just busy, just focused on important things. I opened a spreadsheet finally. I needed to track what I was sending because I'd lost count. The number shocked me. Over the course of 13 months, I'd sent Sophia $18,000. $18,000. That was more than half my total savings, more than I'd saved in the last 5 years combined. I stared at that number for a long time. Part of me wanted to feel sick, to feel used, to recognize what was happening. But I pushed those feelings down. This was an investment. This was love. This was building a future. Sophia needed me. She depended on me. And one day, when we were finally together permanently, it would all be worth it. I started planning my second visit. I'd saved up enough vacation days again. I could take another 2 weeks off work. But this time I wanted to surprise her. I wanted to show up unannounced and see the genuine joy on her face when I appeared unexpectedly. It would be romantic, spontaneous. It would prove my devotion and maybe break through whatever wall still existed between us. I booked the flights in secret. I didn't tell Sophia I was coming. I told her I had a big project at work and wouldn't be able to chat as much for a couple weeks. She seemed fine with it, almost relieved to have a break from our nightly calls. I should have seen that as a red flag, but I didn't. I packed my bags with excitement and anxiety churning in my stomach. This trip would determine everything. This trip would be the test of whether our relationship could transition from online to real. Whether the love we professed through screens could exist in three-dimensional reality. I flew back to Manila, then caught a smaller domestic flight to the region where Sophia lived. From there, I hired a van to drive me to her town in Batangas. The drive took over 3 hours through increasingly rural roads, mountains in the distance, rice paddies, small villages. It was beautiful in a way that made me understand why Sophia loved her home. I had her address memorized. We'd talked about her house so many times. The blue gate out front, the neighbor's dog that always barked, the small garden where her mother grew vegetables. I knew exactly where I was going. When the van dropped me off in the center of town, I started walking. My suitcase rolling behind me on the uneven sidewalk. People stared at me. Foreigners were uncommon here. I didn't care. I was on a mission. I was going to surprise the woman I loved. I walked past the remittance center, where Sophia picked up all the money I sent. It was next to a hardware store and across from a small restaurant. I turned down her street. My heart was hammering. What would her face look like when she saw me? Shock, joy? Surprise, love? I played out the scene in my mind. She'd scream maybe, or cry, or run to me and jump into my arms. It would be perfect. It would be everything I'd dreamed about. Then I saw her. About half a block ahead, walking in my direction, but she wasn't alone. She was walking hand in hand with a man. He was shorter than me, stockier, probably around her age. He had his other arm around her waist. They were laughing together, comfortable, intimate. The easy affection I'd craved from her for months. She was giving it to him, right there, right in front of me. I stopped walking. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. That couldn't be Sophia. It had to be someone who looked like her. But no, it was her. I knew her face. I'd stared at it on my screen for hundreds of hours. That was definitely her, and she was holding hands with another man. Then she looked up and saw me. Our eyes met. Everything happened in slow motion. Her expression changed from happiness to shock to horror, all in the span of 2 seconds. The color drained from her face. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. She stopped walking. The man next to her noticed and stopped too. He followed her gaze to me. His expression shifted from confusion to suspicion. I found my voice. "Sophia!" It came out as barely a whisper. I cleared my throat and tried again. "Sophia, it's me. I came to surprise you." The man next to her said something in Tagalog, sharp and questioning. She responded quickly, her voice shaking. I couldn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. Defensive, scared, caught. The man looked at me again, his eyes narrowing. He said something else to Sophia. Then he looked back at me and spoke in broken English. "Who are you?" Before I could answer, Sophia found her voice. "He's my friend. From online. Just a friend, a friend." The word hit me like a punch to the stomach. I took a step forward, my legs unsteady. "A friend? Sophia, we've been together for over a year. You call me sweetheart. You tell me you love me. I've sent you—" I stopped myself. I couldn't say it. Not in front of him. Not like this. "I've sent you money," I finished lamely. The man's expression changed. Understanding dawned on his face. Then anger. Deep, burning anger. He said something to Sophia in Tagalog, his voice rising. She responded quickly, pleading, trying to explain. He cut her off and turned to me. His English was rough, but the meaning was brutally clear. "You are the foreigner, the one who sends money." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. He knew about me, about the transfers, about everything. My mind reeled. How did he know? Who was he? Sophia was looking at the ground now, tears streaming down her face. The man stepped slightly in front of her, protective and possessive at the same time. "She is my wife," he said. The words hung in the air between us. "Wife, my wife. She is my wife." Everything clicked into place. Every piece of the puzzle I'd been ignoring for months suddenly made sense. The separate hotel rooms, the lack of physical intimacy, the guardedness, the distance. She had a husband. She'd had one the entire time. All the I love yous and plans for our future and dreams of being together. All of it was a lie. Every single word, every promise, every moment I thought we were building something real. It was all fiction. Carefully constructed fiction, designed to extract money from a lonely, desperate man halfway around the world. I looked at Sophia, really looked at her. She was still crying, her shoulders shaking. But she wouldn't meet my eyes. She kept her gaze fixed on the ground like she couldn't bear to look at me. I wanted her to deny it, to say the man was lying, to explain that he was her brother or cousin or ex-boyfriend who was confused. Anything. Any explanation that would make sense of this nightmare. But she said nothing. She just cried and looked away, and let the silence confirm the truth. "You have a husband," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Flat, emotionless, like I was stating a fact about the weather. "The whole time? You've had a husband the whole time?" She still didn't respond. The man answered for her. "Yes, we have been married 4 years. We have 2 children. Children. She had children." I'd talked to this woman almost every single day for over a year, and she'd never once mentioned a husband or children. She'd talked about her parents and her brother, and her dreams and her struggles, but never a husband, never kids, never the actual life she was living while pretending to build a different one with me. "Why?" The question came out broken. I didn't even know what I was asking. "Why did you lie? Why did you pretend? Why did you let me believe we had something real? Why did you take my money? Why did you waste a year of my life?" All of those questions wrapped up in one word. She finally looked up at me. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. What could she possibly say? What explanation could justify this level of deception? The husband spoke again, his voice harder now. "You need to go. Leave us alone. Stop sending money. She is my wife. This is finished." He took Sophia's arm and started to pull her away. She went without resistance, glancing back at me once with an expression I couldn't read. Guilt, regret, relief that it was finally over. I didn't know. I'd thought I knew her. I'd spent hours every day for a year getting to know her. but I didn't know her at all. The woman I'd fallen in love with didn't exist. I stood there in the middle of the street, watching them walk away. A few local people had stopped to watch the confrontation. They were staring at me now, the stupid foreigner who'd been played for a fool. I turned and walked in the opposite direction. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to move, to get away, to process what had just happened. I found a small hotel a few blocks away, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour. I didn't care. I paid cash and went upstairs and locked the door behind me. I sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress was thin and lumpy. The room smelled like stale cigarette smoke and mildew. I stared at the wall. My mind was completely blank. I couldn't think, couldn't feel, couldn't process. I don't know how long I sat there. Hours, maybe. Eventually, I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking. I opened our messaging app. All our conversations were still there. Thousands of messages. I scrolled through them. Every "I love you." Every "I miss you, my love." Every "I can't wait until we're finally together." Every message where she asked for money, and I sent it without hesitation. I opened my email and found the transfer confirmations. I'd been keeping them in a folder, organized by date. Proof of my devotion, proof of my investment in our future. I opened my spreadsheet and updated it with the final numbers. Over 14 months, I'd sent Sophia $23,400. 23,000. I stared at that number until it stopped looking like anything. Just digits on a screen, abstract, meaningless, except it wasn't meaningless. That was my savings, my retirement, my security. Years of careful planning and disciplined saving, gone. Handed over to a married woman in the Philippines who'd never loved me, who'd probably never even liked me, who'd seen me as nothing but a paycheck. The worst part wasn't the money, though. It was the realization of how thoroughly I'd been deceived, how completely I'd bought into the fantasy. I'd ignored every red flag. The separate rooms, the lack of intimacy, the constant need for money, the way she'd seemed relieved when I said I couldn't chat as much before this trip. All the signs were there, and I'd willfully ignored them because I wanted so badly to believe someone could love me, that someone could want me, that I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life alone. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. There was a water stain in the corner, brown and spreading. I focused on it. Anything to keep my mind from spiraling. But I couldn't stop the thoughts. Did she laugh about me with her husband? Did they plan the request for money together? How many other men was she doing this to? Was I the only one or just one of many? How much of what she told me was true? Anything? Did she even really work at a cafe? Was her mother actually sick? Was any of it real? I stayed in that hotel room for 3 days. I couldn't bring myself to leave. I had food delivered, rice and chicken from a restaurant down the street. I barely ate it. Mostly I just lay there staring at nothing, replaying every conversation, every video call, trying to find the moment where I should have known, where I should have questioned, where I should have protected myself. But the truth was there was no single moment. It was all of them. Every time I sent money, every time I ignored my gut feeling that something was off, every time I chose to believe instead of doubt. On the 4th day, I forced myself to get up, to shower, to pack my bag. I checked out of the hotel and took a taxi back to the regional airport. I changed my return flights to leave immediately. I didn't want to spend another minute in this country. I flew back to Manila, then caught the first available international flight home. The journey was even worse than the trip over. At least then I'd had hope, excitement, purpose. Now I just felt empty, hollowed out, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left just the shell. When I got back to my apartment, I walked through the door and looked around. Nothing had changed. The same furniture in the same places, the same dishes in the sink, the same routine waiting for me. But everything felt different, contaminated. I'd sat on that couch talking to Sophia for hundreds of hours. I'd made dinner in that kitchen with her face on my phone screen, propped against the wall. I'd lain in that bed dreaming about our future together. Every corner of my apartment held memories of her, memories that were now revealed to be based on lies. I opened my laptop. Part of me hoped there would be a message from Sophia, an explanation, an apology, something, but there was nothing. I tried to send her a message. It wouldn't go through. Blocked. She'd blocked me on the messaging app. I checked my email. Blocked there too. She'd severed all contact the moment I discovered the truth. No goodbye. No explanation. No acknowledgement of what she'd done. Just silence, like I'd never existed. Like the past 14 months had never happened. Like I was nothing. I didn't go to work for a week. I called in sick every day. My supervisor was concerned, but I told him I had the flu. I'd be back soon. I wasn't sick, though. Not physically. I just couldn't function. Couldn't get out of bed most days. When I did, I'd wander around my apartment in a daze. I'd open the refrigerator and forget why. I'd turn on the TV and stare at it without seeing anything. I'd pick up my phone to call someone, then remember I had no one to call. My friends had drifted away during the year I'd been obsessed with Sophia. I'd cancelled plans, turned down invitations, stopped responding to messages. I'd isolated myself completely for a relationship that never existed. The financial reality started to sink in slowly. I checked my bank account. $2,300. That's all I had left. $2,000 to my name at age 50. I'd had over $30,000 just 14 months ago. I'd spent nearly $24,000 on Sophia and another $6,000 on the 2 trips to the Philippines. Everything I'd saved over decades of working, gone. I'd have to start over from nothing. At 50 years old with no savings, no retirement fund, no backup plan. The panic started to set in. How would I retire? What if I had a medical emergency? What if I lost my job? I went back to work eventually. I had to. I needed the paycheck now more than ever. My co-workers noticed I'd changed. Lost weight. Looked older. Seemed distant and distracted. They stopped trying to make conversation after a while. I became a ghost in my own office. Showing up, doing my work. Leaving. No interaction. No connection. Just going through the motions. I picked up more freelance work. Every spare hour spent doing extra accounting projects for extra money. Trying to rebuild what I'd lost, but it felt futile. I'd worked for 25 years to build those savings. How long would it take to replace them? Another 25 years. I'd be 75 by then. Too old to enjoy it. Too old to do anything with it. The emotional damage was worse than the financial, though. So I stopped trusting myself. Every decision I'd made regarding Sophia had been wrong. Every instinct I'd ignored had been right. How could I trust my judgment about anything anymore? I'd proven myself to be a complete fool. Easily manipulated, desperate, pathetic. Those words played on repeat in my mind. Pathetic, you're pathetic. A 50-year-old man sending his life savings to a woman half his age who he'd never even met in person. You deserved this. You were asking for it. I tried to find information online about what had happened to me. I typed "online romance scam Philippines" into a search engine. Thousands of results appeared, forums full of stories exactly like mine. Men from the US, Canada, Australia, Europe. All of them had met Filipina women online. All of them had sent money. All of them had been lied to. Some had lost even more than me. 50,000, 100,000. Their entire retirement accounts emptied. Their houses mortgaged. Some had divorced their wives to be with these women, only to discover the women were married with families. Reading those stories should have made me feel better, less alone. But it made me feel worse. I wasn't even original in my stupidity. I was one of thousands, tens of thousands. A statistic, a type. The lonely middle-aged man desperate for companionship, who falls for the young, beautiful woman promising love in exchange for money. It was the oldest scam in the book, and I'd fallen for it completely. I hadn't even questioned it. I'd been so eager to believe that someone could love me that I'd ignored every single warning sign. I thought about reporting her to the authorities, but what would I report? That I'd willingly sent money to someone I'd never met? That I'd been lied to by someone I'd chosen to trust? There was no crime here, not legally. I'd given her the money. She hadn't stolen it. She'd just lied about why she needed it and who she was. And even if I did report her, nothing would happen. She was in the Philippines. I was in the US. Different countries. Different laws. No way to prosecute. No way to get the money back. It was just gone permanently. Months passed. I fell into a new routine: work, freelance, sleep, repeat. No social life. No hobbies, no joy. Just existence. Just survival. I paid my bills. I bought groceries. I saved what little I could, but the money trickled in so slowly compared to how fast I'd given it away. Every dollar I managed to save felt insignificant compared to the $23,000 I'd lost. I'd worked for months to save $1,000. Sophia had taken that from me in a single transfer. The loneliness was crushing. It had been bad before Sophia. That's why I'd been so vulnerable to her manipulation. But now it was worse, because now I knew what it felt like to talk to someone every day, to have someone to share things with, even if it was fake, to have someone who seemed to care even if they didn't. Going back to absolute isolation after experiencing that false connection was harder than never having it at all. I'd had a taste of companionship, and now the lack of it hurt even more. I tried to go back to dating apps. Local ones this time. I'd learned my lesson about international dating, but I couldn't do it. I'd create a profile and stare at it. Then I'd delete it. Create it again. Delete it again. I couldn't trust anyone. Every woman who liked my profile or sent me a message, I assumed was trying to scam me. Every conversation felt like a potential trap. Every compliment felt like manipulation. I'd been so thoroughly broken by Sophia that I couldn't imagine trusting anyone ever again. A year passed since that day in Batangas. I'd managed to save about $4,000. It was something. A small start to rebuilding. But I was 51 now. Time was running out. I should have been thinking about retirement. Instead, I was starting from zero. I did the math one night. If I saved aggressively, if nothing went wrong, if I had no emergencies, I might have $50,000 saved by the time I was 65. $50,000. That was supposed to last me the rest of my life. It was impossible. The retirement I'd been planning, the comfortable later years I'd been working toward, they were gone. Sophia had stolen my future along with my present. Sometimes late at night I'd still think about her. I'd wonder if she ever thought about me, if she felt any guilt or remorse, or if I was just completely forgotten. One mark among many, completely interchangeable and forgettable. I'd wonder about her husband. Had he known the whole time? Had they planned it together? Or had he been as shocked as I was? Did she do this to other men after me? Was there another lonely guy somewhere sending her money right now, believing she loved him, believing they had a future together? I'd look at photos sometimes. From my trips to the Philippines, photos of Sophia and me together at restaurants, at the bay, in front of landmarks. In every photo, I'm smiling, genuinely happy. My eyes bright with hope and love. In every photo, she's smiling too, but her smile doesn't reach her eyes. Looking at the photos now, I could see it clearly. The performance, the distance, the fakeness of it all. How had I not seen it then? How had I been so blind? But I knew the answer. I'd seen what I wanted to see. I'd been so desperate to believe someone could love me that I'd ignored reality entirely. The worst moments were when I'd forget for a second. I'd be at work or watching TV, and my phone would buzz with a notification. For a split second, my heart would jump, thinking it was Sophia. Then reality would crash back. It would never be Sophia. That was over. That relationship, that entire year of my life, was based on nothing. Those moments of forgetting and remembering were like experiencing the loss fresh every single time, like ripping open a wound that was trying to heal. I started seeing a therapist eventually. I couldn't afford it really. $75 a session. But I was barely functioning and I knew I needed help. I told her everything. The whole humiliating story. She listened without judgment. She told me I wasn't alone. That romance scams were incredibly common. That the perpetrators were sophisticated and skilled at psychological manipulation. That I shouldn't blame myself. But I did blame myself. How could I not? Yes, Sophia had lied. But I'd chosen to believe her. I'd chosen to ignore the red flags. I'd chosen to send money again and again and again. Those were my choices, my failures. The therapist tried to help me understand why I'd been vulnerable. The loneliness, the low self-esteem, the desperate need for connection. She said people in my situation often fall for these scams because they're offering something that seems impossible to find otherwise. Love, companionship, someone who cares. She said I needed to work on loving myself before I could have a healthy relationship with anyone else. It sounded like self-help nonsense to me. But I kept going to the sessions, because at least it was someone to talk to, even if I was paying for it. 2 years after meeting Sophia, I was starting to stabilize. Not heal exactly, but stabilize. I had a small savings account building again. I was functioning at work. I'd stopped obsessively checking my phone for messages that would never come. I'd accepted the loss, accepted that the money was gone forever, accepted that I'd made terrible decisions and would have to live with the consequences. Acceptance isn't the same as peace, but it's something. It's a step. I still haven't dated anyone. I don't know if I ever will. The thought terrifies me, opening myself up to another person, being vulnerable, trusting someone with my feelings and my resources. I can't imagine doing it. Can't imagine taking that risk again. So I'm alone, permanently this time, by choice rather than by circumstance. It's different, but it's still lonely. Maybe more lonely because now I know what I'm missing. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd never found Sophia's profile, if I'd kept swiping on local apps, if I'd stayed patient, if I'd saved my money and built the comfortable retirement I'd planned. I'd probably still be alone, but I'd have financial security. I'd have my dignity. I'd have the ability to trust myself. I'd have something. Now I have nothing but expensive lessons learned the hardest way possible. I look back at that man I was 2 years ago, the one who was so excited to message a beautiful woman in the Philippines, so hopeful that maybe finally someone could love him. That man seems like a stranger to me now. So naive, so trusting, so desperate. I don't know if I'm better off now being more realistic and jaded, or if I was better off then being hopeful and optimistic, even if it was based on delusion. At least then I had something to look forward to, something to dream about. Now I have nothing but the knowledge of how badly I can fail myself. I'm 52 now. I work, I save, I exist, that's all. I've stopped hoping for anything more than that. Hope is what got me into this mess. Hope that someone could love me. Hope that I could build a future with Sophia. Hope that my life could be different, better, fuller. All that hope led me to lose everything. So now I live without it. Without hope and without trust and without the vulnerability that leads to connection. It's safe. It's protective. It's also incredibly empty. If I could go back and talk to my 49-year-old self, the one who was about to send that first message to Sophia, what would I say? Would I tell him not to do it, to save his money and his heart? Or would I let it happen, knowing that sometimes lessons can only be learned through pain? I don't know. Maybe both are true. Maybe I needed to go through this to become who I am now. Even if who I am now is broken and guarded and fundamentally changed. The money is gone. The time is gone. The version of myself that could believe in love is gone. What I have now is hard-earned wisdom and cautionary tale to tell. I share this story not because I'm proud of it, not because I think I made good choices, but because somewhere out there is someone like I was, lonely, desperate, vulnerable, about to make the same mistakes. And maybe, just maybe, hearing my story will make them pause, make them question, make them protect themselves in a way I didn't. If you're talking to someone you've never met, if they're asking for money, if the situation feels too good to be true, it is. Walk away. Block them. Protect yourself. Because I promise you, the pain of being alone is nothing compared to the pain of discovering that the connection you thought you had never existed, that the love you felt was one-sided, that you were nothing but a means to an end. That pain is unbearable. That pain doesn't go away. I don't know what my future holds. More of the same probably. Work, save, exist, grow old alone. Try not to think too much about what could have been if I'd made better choices. Try not to calculate how much I'd have saved by now if I hadn't given it all to Sophia. Try not to wonder what she's doing now or if she ever thinks about me. Try not to miss the fantasy of her, because even though it was fake, for a while it made me feel less alone, and sometimes on the hardest nights, I miss that feeling more than anything. This is my story. This is what happened when I confused hope with reality, when I mistook manipulation for love, when I ignored every warning sign, because I wanted so badly to believe someone could want me. I lost $23,400, but I lost so much more than money. I lost time, trust, hope, the ability to believe in connection. I lost myself, and I'm still trying to figure out if there's a way to find myself again, or if this broken, guarded, lonely version is who I am now, permanently, forever. If you're watching this and you've been through something similar, know that you're not alone. There are thousands of us, tens of thousands. People who believed and trusted and lost everything. We're not stupid. We're not weak. We're human. We wanted connection in a disconnected world. We wanted love in a lonely existence. That's not shameful. What happened to us is not our fault, even if we made choices that enabled it. We were victims of sophisticated manipulation. And we're still here, still surviving, still trying to figure out how to move forward. That counts for something. It has to. My name doesn't matter. My story is one of many, but it's mine, and I'm sharing it in the hope that it helps someone somewhere make a different choice. A better choice. A choice that protects them from the kind of devastating loss that I experienced. Choose carefully, trust slowly, and remember that real love never requires you to empty your bank account. Real love doesn't exist primarily through wire transfers. Real love doesn't hide behind screens and excuses and distance. Real love shows up, in person, consistently, without conditions. If what you have doesn't look like that, it's not love, no matter how much you want it to be. Learn from my mistakes, protect yourself, and maybe, unlike me, you'll find something real, something genuine, something worth the risk. I hope you do. I really do.